Hello everyone, and you must be thinking about what is consumer behavior, what is the scope of consumer behavior, or why there is a need to study the consumer behavior. So, hello everyone, I'm Dr. Rashmi Singh, Associate Professor in the area of marketing. And today in this particular video, I'm going to discuss about the consumer behavior, the definition of consumer behavior, or why there is a need to study this particular subject. So, if we talk about the consumer behavior, so consumer behavior is consists of a word consumer. So, in terms of consumer, if we talk about every consumer is unique in needs, wants, and their own preferences. Like every consumer is having their own needs, they are having their own wants and their own preferences. So, because of that, they are showing the different types of buying and as well as the consumption patterns. So basically, if we talk about the consumer, or if you consider yourself as a consumer, so this particular subject, the consumer behavior, is focusing on how consumers think, feel, and act. uh, every day we are bombarded with n number of products. There are n number of competitors in the market. So if you want to compete in the market, you should know like what is the behavior of your consumer, what is the unique need of the consumer, what are the changing preferences of the consumer. So because of that, this particular subject is very important to study. If we go by the definition of the consumer behavior, so if it is defined as the interplay of different forces that takes place during the consumption process, and it happens within the consumer and his environment. So if you look at the definition, I have used a word that is interplay of forces. So what are these interplay of forces? Like how the consumers recognize their needs, or how they are unique in their needs. So there are three different types of forces that act within the individual, and these forces are basically the cognition, emotions, and the actions. So these are the three different forces because of which the consumer behavior is driven. So this cognition is basically the knowledge of the consumer or external stimuli from where you are getting some information about any particular product or the services. Affect is basically some emotions which are related to that particular product, like favorable or unfavorable feelings. And the behavior is basically is defined in terms of actual actions which are taken by the consumers. So overall, in the consumer behavior subject, we will be discussing about the consumption process, and this consumption process is divided into three different stages, like pre-purchase activity, which involves the need recognition, information search, and the evaluation of alternatives. Then this pre-purchase activities, once you will evaluate the different alternatives, it is driven by the purchase decision. So you as a consumer will be deciding like whether you will be purchasing that particular product or not. And once you will purchase the product, it is driven by the post purchase behavior and the consumption. So whether you are feeling happy, whether you are feeling satisfied or dissatisfied with the uses of that particular product. There are many researchers who have defined the consumer behavior from the different perspectives, like how the consumers evaluate the product. Obviously, as I have already discussed, that is a pre-purchase decision. Before purchasing any particular product, we always evaluate. But what we will evaluate before that, we have to select different brands of or different products, and then we have to identify the different criterias or the attributes on the basis of which we will evaluate the product. Then we will acquire, we will buy the product, and post consumption, that is how consumers use and dispose of the product. So this is just the another view or the another definition of the consumer behavior. These are the few examples. If you will look at like how the companies have marketed themselves, or what kind of behavior they have identified from the consumers, and they have positioned themselves accordingly. If you take the example of Zomato and Swiggy, so nowadays people are, if we talk about a family, so within a family both husband and wife, or basically mother and father, both are working. So such type of families are looking for that some time saving or some convenience. So Zomato and Swiggy, they have focused on this convenience and the time saving aspect. If you take the example of Netflix, So there are basically they are providing us the personalized content for the users, because each user is unique in their own need, in their own want, and in their own self, as well as the preferences. If we take the example of Amazon and the Flipkart, so basically reviews and price sensitivity. We are looking for different reviews before ordering any particular product from the Amazon or the Flipkart or from any e-commerce site. We are looking for the different reviews, and then the companies are also providing the different discount because they are price sensitive consumers also. If you look at the Adidas and the Nike, so they are basically focusing on consumers are looking for self image, like how do you feel while consuming the product like of Nike and the Adidas. Mamaearth, they are focusing on the minimalist as well as the natural approach. There are different factors. As earlier I have mentioned that every consumer is unique. So unique in terms of how you will define this uniqueness. So there are different factors which are defining this uniqueness or which are defining this particular consumer behavior. So these factors are basically divided into two different factors: internal factors and the external factors. So internal factors are basically the consumer's motivation, perception, personality, lifestyle, learning also, attitude will be there, although these are not mentioned in this slide, but these are the different factors. And throughout this particular consumer behavior course, we will be discussing all these. Then there are certain external or the environmental influences which are affecting the consumer's decision. So that is the society and the social class. The culture is also influencing, subculture, cross culture. Just take the example, the consumer who are living in the northern part of India and the consumer who are living in the southern part of India, their behavior, their culture, their way of the type of food they are having or the type of apparel they are wearing, all are different. So all are driven by actually by the culture. uh, okay, so this consumer behavior, although it is a part of marketing, but we can say it is an interdisciplinary subject, or you can say the different subjects, like it has like if you take the example of psychology, so it has taken some concepts from consumer behavior, has taken some concepts from the psychology, from the sociology, from the social psychology, from the anthropology and the economics. Psychology, like we are in consumer behavior, what we are actually discussing, we are talking about the consumer buying behavior. This is the psychology. If we take the example of sociology, how consumer behavior is related to sociology, so we are talking about here in consumer behavior group dynamics or the group influence, how the group, a particular group is affecting the consumer decision making. Consumer behavior, this subject is also related to the social psychology, like group versus individual behavior. We are behaving differently when we are in a group, and we are behaving differently when we are alone. So this particular subject is related to the social psychology. Anthropology, I have already discussed, like how the culture is affecting the behavior of consumers. And last, it is the economics, like income and the purchasing power. So in particular, this particular subject, we are talking about buying and selling. We are talking about the purchasing. So whenever the purchasing is coming, so it's basically related to the economics. Okay, this particular subject, the consumer behavior, it is very dynamic in nature. So it basically changes, consumers' preferences changes over time because your environment changes. Just take your example. Here you are the student, and after 2 years, when you will be working, your preferences will change. So it changes over time. You will be earning. So the type of product you are consuming now, maybe it changes later on, and the type of environment, here you will be in the college, but after 2 years when you will enter the corporate world, your environment will change, so accordingly your overall behavior will change. So basically this consumer behavior, just in short we can say it's the interaction between the consumer and the market. Overall, this particular consumer behavior is an exchange process. Like here, the buyer will gives money, the seller will gets the product, gives you the product and the service, and at the end, both will get benefit. If you take the example of Zomato or the Swiggy, so when you are feeling hungry, you order food through Zomato, and you are giving your time, you are giving your money, you are giving your personal details. So this, you are giving all these, and what you are getting the food delivered to you very conveniently, and you feel satisfied and happy. But if we take the example of from the seller's side, the sellers are getting orders and the payment, Zomato gets the commission, the business earns profit, and the brand builds the customer relationship. So it's a kind of exchange process. Consumer and seller both are getting benefited. Okay, so if we talk about the consumer behavior as a field of study, so it is both descriptive as well as analytical and interpretative in nature. How it is descriptive? So basically in this consumer behavior subject, we will be explaining how the consumers are making decisions, how the different individual internal as well as the external environment is affecting the consumer decision making process. So in that way it is descriptive in nature. How it is analytical in nature? So consumer behavior, we are using the different qualitative and the quantitative research. We have driven different theories, taken theories from the different fields like psychology and the sociology. So it helps us to predict or interpret or analyze the consumer behavior. So in that way it is both descriptive as well as analytical in approach. Again, it is a science as well as an art. So it uses theories which is basically borrowed from, I have already discussed that this particular subject is interdisciplinary in nature. So it borrows theories from the different social sciences to understand the consumer behavior. And here like in order to understand the behavior, it is analytical in nature. How? Because it is using different qualitative and the quantitative tools to predict the consumer behavior. So it is both science and art. Okay. If we talk about the consumer decision making process, so at the time of purchasing any particular product, there are 5 different stages that we as a consumer are going through. Like need recognition is the first stage, followed by the information search, then third will be the evaluation of alternatives, then purchase, and last will be the post purchase. But at the time of all these 5 stages, there are different roles which are played by the consumers. Like consumers will be acting as an initiator, you can be acting as an influencer, decider, buyer, and the user. I'm just giving you one example. Suppose in your family you are planning to purchase a washing machine. So your mother initiates this, yes, washing machine is not working, we should have a new washing machine. So in this particular process, your mother is the initiator for the purchasing of washing machine. Now you or your father can be acting as an influencer. You will be searching for different information, you will be identifying the different brands, at what prices the consumers are, the products are selling, or what are the different reviews. So you will influence the decision of your mother ki we should have that ABC brand or XYZ brand as a washing machine, as a brand for our washing machine. So this is, here you are acting as an influencer who are influencing the decision of your mother. Then decider, it can be your mother or it can be your father. Like who will decide? Like you have suggested 2-3 brands, and at the end who is deciding like which brand we should purchase? Then buyer will be your father or your mother who is actually paying the money. So that will be the buyer, and user in this case, in case of washing machine, the entire family will be the user. So basically it can be the different roles that I have discussed. It depends on situations. Like sometimes you will be playing all the 5 different roles, or sometimes different parties will involved who will be acting as initiator, influencer, decider, buyer, or the user. So this is all from my side. So thank you so much. Wish you all the best.